Welcome to the Berea Podcast. This is Troy. Today is May 15th, 2018. I went to our City Hall and walked through it with their open house of the new City Hall facility we have. Then came back home, sat down, turned some news on, and was looking at local news online. Was just really amazed with this political culture that we're living in today. Lots of opinions being shared, lots of actions being taken from those opinions. And I just wondered if it was always like this. So I went back in time. And by that, I mean, I started looking into the digital archives in the Berea College's Hutchins Library digital collection. They've updated the website so it's even easier to look through. And I've found an interview from 1978. It's of Berea's mayor then, Mayor Hensley, and he was being interviewed by Joyce Hannon. And I tell you, you should listen to it for no other reason than the interplay of their accents. That's pretty special. But also listen to him talk about the city, talk about being mayor. It's a different time. This is part one of a two-part interview. So I'm going to encourage you to go to thebereapodcast.com/1978 and get links to the specific page where you can find part two of this interview and some information about the digital archives that I found this in. It's something not to be missed, to really just have a refreshing feel for what it was like back here in 1978.
Good morning, Mayor Hensley.
Good morning.
This is Tuesday, October 3rd, 1978. I am Joyce Hannon, interviewing Mayor Clinton C. Hensley for Berea, Kentucky. This is for the Kentucky Oral History Commission. We're sitting in his office at the City Hall in Berea, and today is one of those beautiful fall days you wish would stay forever. This is the kind of day that I just like to be out traipsing through the mountains and hills around here, wouldn't you?
Beautiful day, and yeah. Would be grand for that.
Yeah. Tell me, Mayor, isn't your situation as a mayor of Berea rather unusual? I mean, being the second mayor in the history of a small town in the United States?
Yes, I think so. The fact that Berea's only had two mayors since 1909, and that was the year I was born. They elected their first mayor in November 1909. He took office January 1st, 1910. And served 48 years, and I succeeded him 21 years ago. So it is rather unusual, I think. And
in fact, weren't you recognized nationwide over this peculiar situation?
I heard that the situation was. I'm not fully aware of it. I have not been contacted about it other than situations like this.
Yeah. Now you've been mayor of Berea for how many years did you say?
I'm the 21st year.
And I suppose you'll continue on as long as you can.
Well, this is a good question in that I have 3 years yet to go after this year in the present term, and I'll be 72 years old. I really doubt if I should. I don't think I should, or any mayor should, stay longer than they feel they can contribute and be productive and of some real benefit to the city. And I don't know what the next 3 years will bring. So,
well, you've had so much experience and you've had successful leadership in the town. I suppose perhaps you'd think, well, some younger man should take it, but I think the years of wisdom and experience have counted a lot.
Well, thank you. Without seeming boastful, I feel like it had been beneficial that I have had the experience and the follow-up, and the fact that I was connected with the city for several years prior to becoming mayor as a councilman, the chief of police, and so forth. I do have, I guess, about as much general knowledge of the community as any person living today.
Yes, that's right. It's working fine. Oh, thank you. I would like to go back over, however, before we go too far afield here, about your own early life. For instance, where did you originate from?
I was born in Clay County at Oneida, Kentucky. In 1909, I came here in April 1919. Of course, my first 9+ years was in a rural community in a public school that I went 5 months of the year, this sort of situation, and there were 8 children in the family. My dad was looking for a better place than we lived to bring the children to educate us, and this he did as long as any of us wanted to go to school. He said, you can live at home, we'll pay your bills, we'll buy you clothes, we'll send you to school, and this is what he did, and I'm quite grateful to my parents had thought enough about the future of the kids to bring us all to a community like Berea.
Was your father a farmer?
My father was a combination farmer and a businessman. He ran a general store from the time he was 18 years old and owned a farm or 2 farms until after we moved to Berea in 1919. He sold the last farm he had in Clay County in 1923. So then he became a businessman here in Berea and continued till his retirement as a merchant here in Berea.
What kind of a what kind of a businessman?
General store.
General store.
This is all in those days that you could have. Of course, after 1923, he bought into the Welch store, which, as most people know, was quite a department store in Berea that sold both wholesale and retail. And in 1910, I believe it's credited as being the largest shopping mall or shopping center in the state outside of Louisville, Kentucky. So it was quite a situation. So he and 2 partners bought half of the 6 stores, and all the stores were connected. It was similar to a mall, and I guess it really was outside of Louisville, one of the largest department stores in the state.
Where was that located in Berea?
Located just west of where we are, about 2 blocks, and started at the National Bank and the 6 stores between the bank and the Broadway Chestnut Street entrance was
I see.
considered the department store.
What about your mother? What kind of a person was she?
My mother was a Combs. She came from Jackson, Breathitt. She was born and reared as a young lady in Breathitt County, and then she married my grandfather, who was a native of Clay County and moved to Clay County when they were quite young. And so she married my father, and the family was raised, or started at least, in Clay County, and we came here in 1919.
I see. Were you educated, had you finished up any of your education here in Berea?
I finished high school here in Berea, and then I went to Eastern on a football scholarship.
Oh, goodness.
And in those days, if you played, you held on to your scholarship. If you didn't play, you lost it. This isn't the case anymore. If you're granted a scholarship and get injured, which I did, I broke a shoulder, and they said, give me your card to the dining room and your room rent, and you'll have to pay it. So I completed the 1 year and withdrew from school. Graduates of college were getting jobs driving a bread truck or a nice wagon or something, $15 a week, and I said, I can do that without a college education. And this was a mistake. Later, I became affiliated with Parker Seal Company here 27 years ago, and in my examinations and tests for the job, I competed against a college graduate. I'm quite proud of the fact that I scored 87% against that group and did get the job and stayed there 10 years plus, but I lost 15% by not having the degree all the time I was there. My salary would have been 15% greater had I had the degree.
Yeah, well, that's just about the only difference there. What were your steps in becoming a mayor? Now, did you start out, for instance, as a young student, had you always been interested in political affairs?
No, I'd been interested in Berea. And really, when I came here, coming from a rural eastern Kentucky area, we left to move to Berea. We left home at 3:30 in the morning. We traveled the first 14 miles by wagon. We boarded a train at Manchester, the first one I'd ever seen. I'd never seen a black man or a train at that time, and it was a coal and a log train with one wicker-seated passenger car on it. We rode from Manchester to Hadrick, which is now swallowed up by Barbersville, but the line ended at Hadrick, so we had to get off the train and carry everything that we had brought with us that we could carry about a mile from the Hadrick end of the line over to the L&N station in Barbersville, and we caught a train there then into Berea, and we arrived in Berea at 5:18 that afternoon. So it took us some 14 hours to travel the distance, and I can drive it in my car today in an hour and 20 to 30 minutes. So there's been quite a change in the situation.
Improvement, I'd say. Now you said you were mainly interested in Berea. Well, I can see that. But after all, your father was intimately connected in business.
Yes.
And you soon became involved in Parker Seal. What from then? Where did you go?
Well, I got interested in the city before I became involved with Parker Seal. And I was a deputy sheriff serving the southern end of Madison County when I went to the service, went to the Air Force in 1942 in June. After my 2 years in the service, I came back here and shortly became a city council member. And then at the end of that year, for some unknown reason, they wanted me to be chief of police. So for the next 5 years, 45 to 50, I was chief of police in Berea. And 1951, I went to the sheriff's office in Richmond, but served southern Madison County. This was the area I worked in. So for the 5 years as chief of police, 4 years in the sheriff's office that term, and 4 years at another later term, I've served as a peace officer in the southern Madison area for 13 years. Then I went back to the city council and got into the situation to become mayor by a very peculiar circumstance. At that particular time, we had 6 members of city council, and we were a 5th-class city. We ran as a unit once, and it was decided at that time one of the 6 that got the highest number of votes would run 2 years later for mayor. And I happened to get the largest number of votes, and 2 years later I ran for mayor against the former mayor. I lost the election and laid out 2 years. So since 1944 until the present time, with the exception of 2 years, I've been connected with the city or the county political setup the rest of my life, and to this point at least.
Well, when you first became involved in the political scene here, the Berea, interest in Berea, for instance, what was it like? Was the whole main street here full of shops? Was it mainly agrarian? Or?
Well, Main Street, as we know it, is Main Street today. This being Cheston Street is the main thoroughfare, and most people refer to it as Main Street. It is the main street. Most of the buildings, the shops, were frame buildings. Most of the sidewalks, when I came here, were wooden. Most of the streets were simply dirt roads. One salesman that back in those days were called drummers, and they didn't play a drum. They sold merchandise. And one of those people referred to Berea once that I did some research and found this statement where he described Berea as being a community 40 miles south of Lexington where there was a flourishing academy. At this academy, both blacks and whites attended school, and Berea itself was a city on a ridge that was 2 miles long, 2 blocks wide, and about 2 feet deep, and this was about right. But I've seen the Berea community grow from the time I came here from 1,100 population to now 8,300 estimated. We'll know in next year exactly, or in 80 exactly what our population is. But
can I ask you something? How much do you feel Berea College has contributed to the growth of Berea?
This is a debatable question. No question the college has had a great impact on the community, but as to the growth, you see they limit their student body, and they have improved their physical plant, their buildings, et cetera, tremendously, and they're doing a job that I don't think is equal to any place, particularly in Appalachia, where they try to and do successfully make available a Christian education or an education with Christian background to people when the college was started that had no opportunity to go to school for various reasons. They lived in 200 counties and parts of 8 southern Appalachian states. Now they only took the region of those states that absolutely had no roads, no schools, and this became a boarding school to afford those people an opportunity to come here and go to school. And it has been a tremendous thing for the student and quite an impact on the Appalachian region as far as I'm concerned. And for a number of years, the college was principally the biggest thing and the biggest part of the city. I got really interested in about 30 years ago in the fact that a student that finished college here, dropped out of school at any level here, or simply got old enough to be in the labor market, there's no place to work unless they did work at the college. Well, this was a bother because I could see the out-migration of all the people who lived here for a time, and then they had to move someplace to make a living. A few men here, myself and 2 or 3 others, got interested in trying to secure some sort of acceptable industry to the community that would afford an opportunity for the people who wanted to stay in Berea and make this their home and have an opportunity to make a living. Thank goodness for the college and what they afforded, but it just wasn't enough. So 27 years ago, we were successful in getting the first of the 6 heavy industries, or major industries as we know them today, and it has worked. We've had ideas, or I guess ideals and goals in our mind that we did not want to do anything to disrupt the tranquility of a small college community. I think we've succeeded. We have some 2,300 people fluctuate in these industries today that had no opportunity prior to this time. And we have, well, I've been fortunate enough, I guess, to have my finger in the pie in securing all of the 6 industries that we have. And we have good industry, no polluters, even to the water quality or sewage control situation. And we've had a goal in mind to not disrupt the college community, make employment available to the people, and still keep a community that people would like to live in. And Berea grew in spite of people. It grew in spite of planning. It will continue to grow. I hope not in spite of planning. I think we've got to have a planned, orderly growth with these 3 facets of the community in mind. And I think this can be achieved. I think the college is now realizing this, that industry has not hurt the school and will not hurt the school. And for a number of years, they were skeptical of it because they, 27 years ago, they just were totally in awe of the fact that we were going to bring an industrial plant to Berea. But it has worked not only to the benefit of the citizenry, but to the college as well, because they sell the water and electric utilities to these 6 plants. So it's been good for all of us.
Yes, I was wondering just what controlling interest the college then does have in the water supply. Did you say they
own and sell to the community the water supply and the electrical supply. Then the city picked up from there, and we built the first sewage treatment plant in 1938. We took the college into that, in that they had a huge septic tank with all their sewage going to it from the campus, and we relieved that situation for them, and it has worked very well for both the community and the college. So I think then on the street repairs, street maintenance, the upkeep, the street sweepers, all this has come about as one of the services the city affords. Garbage collection and disposal, and we have, through a lot of effort, one of the best sanitary landfills in the state, according to the environmental people.
Yeah.
So this, again, was something that we saw the need for several years before we got it. So we started looking to this because I could see the requirement. If you don't do it, you're going to be forced to do it. So we got busy, and in 3 blocks of this building, we had a burning dump. And we found that location. We purchased 108 acres, went through the courts to make sure we were on solid ground. We filed a friendly suit in the circuit court and carried to the Court of Appeals to make sure that we would not start something that was not of a nature that we could continue. And it has worked for both the community and the college very well.
Yeah. How many people do you figure that have come into town due to the industries, and how many people from the town are employed in industries, approximately?
I'd say we know the number of people employed. At peak, when all the factories are working full strength, we've got about 2,350 people. And this will fluctuate 200 or 300, depending on the peak in the valleys in the employment area here. And about 10% of those people are from out of town. They came here with the industry and are still affiliated with it, and they've become interested in the community as well as those of us who live here, and some of them have contributed considerably toward the various committees and the groups and whatever that are obligated, as I feel, to operate a city government that's good for everybody.
Could you name me the first industry that came here, and tell me a little bit about the 6 major industries? What do they do?
All right. The first one is Parker Seal Company, which is a subsidiary of Parker Hannifin Corporation out of Cleveland. They came to Berea 27 years ago, and now they employ more people than anyone. They employ, at peak, about 600 people. They operate 3 shifts a day, and I worked for them for 10 years, starting when they opened the plant. And if you could have seen the parking lot and the automobiles on it when they started 27 years ago, and 3 or 4 years later, I've seen the cars in the parking lot, you could see the progress just driving through the parking lot. Being acquainted with the industry and being personnel director and general superintendent of the plant, I saw people who had no job go to the point where they have bought homes, built homes, bought automobiles and farm machinery, and a lot of them do both. A lot work at the industry and farm to some degree in addition to that. So the economy of the community has grown unbelievably, and I can cite you figures. At the end of 44, which was my first full year with the city, our budget, or our audit, showed that we had spent between $16,000 and $17,000. This year, we're preparing a budget that we'll submit the 1st of January, or in December, of in excess of $1 million. And this, in my opinion, outstrips the population growth, because the economic growth has been brought about by these industries, and simply makes it fantastic as far as I'm concerned, because when we had no industry here, you relied on a job with the college. All those jobs were taken when you came into the labor market. 1, 2, or 3 people a year might surrender a job through various reasons, and then somebody could get those jobs. Now, this isn't the situation, and even though the college is one of the principal employers of faculty, staff, and hourly rated workers as well, you might say we got 7 full-fledged industries.
Sure. What are some of the other industries that came?
All right, Parker Seal was the first. They came here 27 years ago, and then Manning Maxwell & Moore, which later sold to Dresser Industries, is the second industry. The third one was Gibson Greeting Card. All right, the next one was Suburban Homes, who stayed here a year, and they didn't fold, but they were not making the money that they had planned to make. Neither did it was a family-owned, a man and his wife owned it, and they had a son graduating from college that they thought would come here and run the plant. They had a similar plant in Valparaiso, Indiana. The son didn't want to follow in the father's footsteps. So they closed this out and said, we'll be back. And he left with me blueprints, floor layout, height to ceilings, the whole ball of wax of the empty building, and said, we'll rent it to the right kind of people on a year-to-year basis, or if the right person comes along, we'll sell it. Well, Hyster Corporation came along. They were looking for an area, a plant in this area, and looking for a building that was already built. And this worked out for Mr. Saylor in Indiana and Hyster Corporation, which is home base in Portland, Oregon. We went down to look at the plant with the president of the corporation from Portland early one morning, and about 2 hours we walked through the building, and to my utter amazement, when we got through, he said this building should have cost so many dollars a square foot. He knew what he was talking about because he missed it 5 cents a square foot. So they said, yes, we'll buy the building if we can work out the deal. We'll have to make some major changes in that we're going to do heavy equipment where they were not. And they had to add a lot of internal steel structures for their overhead hoist and the handling of the heavy equipment and the production line equipment, which Mr. Saylor didn't have in the Suburban Homes plant. But it worked very well with them. So we called Mr. Saylor, and he came down, and he made a price, they made an offer, and within 3 days, they had consummated a sale. All right, this was on Thursday at noon. Sunday, they had trucks moving in here. They moved and moved rapidly because they were looking for a place that was already built. They have been, well, Parker and Dresser have been totally satisfied with the type of people they got and the production that they've turned off. This was a worry of the Parker people early because they thought, well, they're Southern people. They were out of Cleveland. They thought we were lazy, and they thought we might not take the pride in the work that the other people did. And they gave us the standards in their Cleveland plant and sent a standards engineer in the plant. He stayed here 2 years. And they pulled him out because they said, we're going to give you 3 years. And they set aside money to subsidize the plant, the operation, for 1 year. The 4th month, it showed a profit. So this changed the thinking of a lot of people about the type of person that could be employed here. All the other plants have found the same thing. So they gave us their 100% standards and said, we know you won't reach them for years. Well, at the end of the first year, we were 110% above the Cleveland plant, and the next year we were, maybe I shouldn't quote the figure, still higher. They pulled a standard engineer out and said, you people go on your own. Our quality level of the product was extremely good, and it is a product that has to be good because it is O-rings, and a lot of people do not understand what an O-ring is, but it's a sealing device used in hydraulics, air, any kind of a situation that requires controlled pressure. And I just got their annual report the other night. We were the 3rd plant they owned 27 years ago. They're international and own over 100 plants today. So it has been a
Yes.
good thing for them and a good thing for this community.
Well, you know what I like about looking at the industries? They're nice-looking buildings. They don't detract from the nice appearance of the town.
Again, this was part of the plan, and risking the preacher getting on to me again several years ago when we worked with Gibson people to get them located, the third industry. The people from Courier Journal, 2 writers and 2 or 3 photographers came, and they wanted to look at the 3 industries. We went down and stood on a high hill back of Gibson and took pictures of the community, of the factories, and this sort of thing. And I explained to him, we have turned away industry. We've turned away a fertilizer manufacturing company. We turned away a leather tanning and processing company. We turned away a dye stamping, metal stamping outfit. Well, I know and a yarn dyeing and spinning outfit. Well, I know where 3 of those are today, and those communities would like not to have them.
Sure.
Then this story came out in the Couriers. One of the writers said to me, "You all are selective as hell." I said, "Well, yes, we are." Well, he quoted me as saying that and got the preacher on to me. Really, he said it, and I agreed with it, and we are. We're selective and have been. We do not take anybody or anything that comes along. We found this to be a great advantage in that after 10 or 15 years, that type of industry didn't come to contact us any longer. They knew the type of community they were coming into. They knew what our requirements or restrictions would be. So they fell by the wayside, and the better industry came.
Well, how do you know, for instance, what kind of industries are you looking for?
All right, most of the industry that locates any place is done by engineers and agents for an industry. They come and we go through a process to a point. Then we say, okay, now we've leveled with you. This is what we got. This is what we're going to offer. And now it's your time to bring the actual individuals in the corporation to talk with us, not an agent. Then we start investigating them as their performance in other communities, their financial status, and this sort of situation. And we make a decision whether to invite them or tell them or discourage them. We don't tell them no. We just discourage them to the point that they say, well, we better look elsewhere. And it worked very successful for us in that now we have the industries here that are non-polluters. None of them belch smoke. None of them discharge fluids or liquids into the sewer system that gives us problems. We monitor each plant every 24 hours so we know what's going on. And it has been very advantageous to the community to have this type of industry, and all 6 of them are in the corporate limits of the city. This is one of the things we said, we're going to furnish you sewers, and we're going to furnish you garbage collection, waste disposal, this sort of thing. And in some instances, we float a bond issue, which lets them construct the building and equip it or whatnot. But this bond issue is not of the nature that would be an obligation to the city in case the industry folded. Our obligation to that industry is that if you don't make it here, we'll do our very best to find a tenant to occupy the building, take over the bond issue, and go on. This was a situation that's happened when Hyster took over Suburban Homes property. The Suburban Homes didn't default. They paid every month on the bond issue, and then when Hyster came, they had about 4 times the amount of bond issue needed, so they encompassed in that the outstanding bonds of the other company, and we haven't had a month's default on any of the 6.
That speaks well.
Well, we didn't float bonds for all of them, just 3 of them, so it has been a very pleasant situation financially for the companies and for Berea.
What do you see in the future for expansion? Do you have enough resources, enough water power, and such?
Now this bothers me because in 1972, when we got Hyster, we had Goodyear come the same year. We had Keller Industries come the same year. We were not looking for those people because it had been our plan and theory that give each new industry 5 years to get it in, get their roots down, get the personnel they needed, and the type personnel they needed before we'd consider another one. Well, these three showed up, all of them very good. They all came in a year's time, 72, 73, within a year's span. And we were concerned, really concerned. But we did know we had the water. We did know we had the sewer system to the point we could handle them because we expanded and built the new plant in '69. So we and all the three went to the new plant. And this is the sort of thing that we had been very careful about, that we didn't overextend ourselves to where they couldn't get the services that they needed. All right. About a year, maybe 2 years afterwards, in 1975, the six industries and Churchill Weavers, which is weaving, it is an industry, but not as we refer to a hard industry. No. They were here 53 years ago, and they were limited in their employment, and certainly the wage level 53 years ago was quite low. But again, we're thankful that they did come and were a part of the community, and if you want to include them, we have 7 industries. So the future hinges on, in my opinion, on what the industry that's here would feel about it. So after the last industry had been here 2 years, well, we cut off. We said to the state industrial development people, don't bring in these prospects, don't say Berea's looking, and we're not. All right. After they'd been in operation for 2 years, a little over, they formed a Berea Industrial Management Club, and it's made up of people who work for a corporation or one of the industries that employed 12 or more people. This meant the college, the hospital, and the city, in addition to the 7. So that gives us 10 different ways to go. So one of the meetings, I asked them to appoint a committee to study for the future. Say, when can we invite another industry? How large can it be? What are our resources that we can offer, and can we keep pace with the demand? And to my surprise, in about 6 or 7 weeks, the committee, comprised of people from all these industries, came back and said, anytime you want to invite another industry, we have found hospital facilities, sanitation facilities, doctors and medical care, the utility situation, and transportation adequate to invite another industry that would employ up to 500 people. We have not done this. We've had the inquiry. We did work with them. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess, pretty nearly, the people we were talking with said, there's a little recession in industry expansion, and the industrial expansion thing was not too good. So we're going to push this on the back burner for a year or two. I wouldn't be surprised tomorrow or any time they didn't come back and say, well, we want to look again. We want to take another look. So it's got to be controlled. It's got to be managed, and to suit the Berea community, it's got to be within the city where we can furnish these services. We don't want to go just outside. This can create problems for you where you have no control.
Do you have enough land for expansion? For instance, what do you think about the in this industrial park situation? You have your industries sort of, well, there are 3 or 4 that are in a similar location, aren't they? Which makes it
this
good.
was planned.
Yeah.
Because, see, Parker Seal is the closest to us here. Dresser is and Gibson are about the same.
Yeah.
Okay, we thought, well, now this is crowding our community. We want to try to guide the next industry in a lane between US 25, US or I-75, Interstate 75 and US 25 in a quarter, which is split by a railroad. So we want to push it north in that quarter. And the state said this is ideal. So after we said we're going to do this, then Richmond, our neighboring community here and the county seat of this county, So, okay, we're going to look at the same thing, and the state people had a lot of influence on that. We're going to expand in the same corridor and expand south where Berea expands north.
Sure.
So yes, we have areas available. We do not have an industrial park. I'm a little leery of it. A lot of communities go for it and go for it big. But I don't want to create a little Pittsburgh where you got all your smoke, all your factories, and everything in one area. I'd rather piecemeal it, I think, like we have done, and look for individual locations that we can serve rather than to create an industrial park. Because once you create it and you said, here it is, now who wants it, you're inviting some problems. So I don't know. I may be wrong, but again, this is my feeling on the thing, particularly in a college community.
What do you think about planning and zoning? Do you think there's I noticed that it's becoming stronger.
Planning and zoning is a must. It gets controversial at times. I think it's worthwhile and worth going through the controversy, and we were the first in the county with it. Richmond followed a few years later, and there's been two efforts made in the last 15 years to get countywide planning and zoning. The rural people do not go for it.
No.
They think that Berea and Richmond are trying to control what they do with their land in the county. This isn't the case, but they need a lot of education on what countywide planning really amounts to. So I think, not necessarily this county, but several counties that take this attitude, countywide planning is going to be forced on them through necessity and mandated, well, you do it. I hate to always be in a position of saying, if you don't, we're going to force you. So I'd like to see a real good educational program that would convince the county people, you got a farm, it'll remain a farm. It's up to you. But they think that the two fiscal bodies in the two communities are trying to tell the county people where he can build a barn, where he can build his cow lot and his hog pens. This isn't the case. But it does give control countywide, if they should go that way, of subdivision regulations and various things that really is not going to hurt, but it'll help the farmer in the long run, or the rural people in the long run. But at this point, they don't see it, and it's rather controversial as to countywide planning.
I'd like to ask you, maybe because I'm taking a class in state and local government right now, how closely are you allied in with what groups, for instance, in governmental, state government?
All right, we're very closely allied with the state government in the industrial development.
Excuse me, ma'am. What I'm doing is just checking when I have to turn this over.
Okay.
But it's all right for...
The Industrial Development Division of the state government, we work very closely with those people. And we work very closely with the Municipal League of the state. That's all the cities that keep the thing going. And we like to feel that through those two areas, and when we are ready, we can do our bit the way it should be done. And then we have, in the last 7 or 8, 10 years, the state has been broken up into area development districts. As you know, Bluegrass Area Development District encompasses us. And by virtue of my office, the county judge and the mayor of Richmond, we have 3 fiscal bodies represented on the board in the Bluegrass Area Development District. The district encompasses 17 counties. 6 of them are Appalachian areas. So we work with those people month to month, day in and day out, and they've been valuable to us. They've rendered a lot of service to us, and we feel that we have to them, and that they were the first totally accepted by the state area development district on all phases and grounds of it. So they work then. We work through them to the state in that the state clearinghouse of all projects that are worked up either by the Bluegrass Area Development District or the communities in their district goes through the state clearinghouse. And then if it's funds or whatever that you're going to ask for grants or loans from the federal government, it goes one to the local community for approval, a Bluegrass Area Development District and Kentucky Clearinghouse, and then we go for the grant.
Yeah. I think I'll turn this over just a second.
Thank you so much for listening to the Berea Podcast. Again, for links on this show, go back to thebereapodcast.com/1978. And if you would, please, like us on Facebook. We're almost up to an even number, so this is exciting. Simply search for the Berea Podcast on Facebook and click that like button. So until next week, bye.
Today is why I stay.